Welcome to Entrepreneur Conundrum with Virginia Purnell, where growing entrepreneurs share how they get visible online.
Hey everyone! Today I'm
Welcome
talking
to
with
Entrepreneur
Michi
Conundrum
McClure,
with Virginia
founder
Purnell,
of
where growing
Consivian, where she
entrepreneurs share
helps
how
leaders
they
and
get
organizations
visible
bridge the
online.
gap between compliance and culture. Through her work in leadership development, executive coaching, and operational strategy, Michi guides teams to build systems that are both compliant and human, aligning with structure with purpose. With a background in law and over 2 decades of experience advising startups, medical groups, and corporations, she brings a unique perspective to modern leadership, one rooted in integrity, clarity, and accountability. At her core, Michi is passionate about helping leaders create workplaces that work for their people and their mission. Welcome, Michi.
Thank you, Virginia. Glad to be here.
Thanks for being with us today. So, how did you get to where you are today?
I'm kind of still trying to figure that out too, but I think if I had to do the Reader's Digest version of it, it is having a goal and resilience. That's been my thing lately is resilience. And I've realized that sometimes you have that goal and you don't even know how to articulate it. Sometimes it's just, you just know. Sometimes it's not something that you're going after. Sometimes it's something that you're just trying to change. Maybe you're just trying to remove yourself from something. And I didn't have a really traditional background. Like I graduated high school early, but I didn't really have a good family system. But I knew that I had a goal, and I realized now that I had some resilience. And so with every bump, I had to figure out how to get to that next place. And then 25, 30 years later, I look back and I go, oh, this is a nice framework for helping people. Leaders, yeah, that's where I started because they were the ones that were reaching out as I was building my company. But I think the reason why it works so far is that when I go in, I'm not just talking to the leadership about their leadership style. I'm making sure that there's alignment with their staff as well, because it is so terrifying to a lot of staff to speak truth to power. And I was in the military, so you didn't do that. You just said, yes, sir, and you just kept going. And that works, obviously, in certain circumstances. Obviously, you don't want to be questioning your superiors if there's a time sensitivity with safety or something like that. But in most cases, I think executives and leadership should take the time to sit back and listen to when truth is being spoken to them. And I think those are the bumps for executives and leadership. They're very different than the bumps for your staff. But if you can have resilience, you can be kind of like, I guess, what I did. And 30 years later, you're like, oh, I've been on this path for a long time and I'm actually getting to where I want to be.
How did you keep resilient in all the bumps and road turns and whatever else came your way?
You know, when we're 15, right, we think, oh, we know it all. Okay. I don't think I ever let go of that. But I think the difference was that I was willing to make adjustments. When I have the next goal, but no, I know that this will work. I know that X will work. I know that opening my own company is where I need to be because I wasn't feeling settled when I was an employee. And that's not for anybody's fault, but you can feel it and you just say, all right, if you're not feeling okay, then what is it that needs to make you feel okay? And you just get up and you have to do it or don't complain. But really what I found is I think a lot of people are resilient to the point to where they get to where they want to be. Sometimes I think what the anxiety, and Lord knows I've been anxiety ridden for the first half of my life. I think where that anxiety comes from is when they're actually content, when a person is actually content and okay, but it's those people around them that are convincing them that no, that's not okay. You need to get to the next level. That's a lot of inner conflict there. And I think the way that I managed to do that was that I did a lot of self-reflection, and I realized that I'm not comfortable. I want to get to this next place, and I think that I can do it. In that instance, maybe it was really good that I wasn't fitting in anywhere, because then I wasn't really listening to a whole lot of noise in the background. I just had a goal, and I went, all right, that's where I'm supposed to be. The knocks came when the universe was like, yeah, maybe you're supposed to be there, but not that way. You need to learn a couple of things first. And then, but you just have to believe. It sounds fluffy, but if you just sit down and you say, what is it that I want, and you're okay with it, I found that getting the resilience to get to X is a lot easier. It's a lot easier.
So basically being, let's say, true to yourself.
Oh, super important. When I say, a lot of times when I go in to do some leadership advising or something, and I talk about truth to power, but then also break into the being strong enough for power to listen, one of the things I think that is missed often, I need to work on making sure that it's more clear, is that the ultimate power is in ourselves. So I also need to listen to my own truth. And my own truth might be, okay, I remember when I was younger, I wanted to be a supermodel. Okay, I'm 5 and I wanted to be a supermodel. But we also know that most of the members of my family are only, at least the females, are only about 5 feet tall. So the chances that I was going to be some supermodel was probably not in the cards. And it's that kind of self-acceptance and changing things around a little bit to where you still say, okay, well, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to be the next supermodel walking down the runway. But if that was the kind of thing that I, like, say, had stayed interested in, maybe fashion or beauty, then find that place. Go after that place and find it. And that's where the bumps come from, is because you might not know how to get there, because articulating that goal is kind of difficult. And whether that's in one's personal life or in the boardroom, there's a goal there, and we all know what it is. We just have to do it with intention. If we do it with intention, I think the path usually kind of opens itself up, and if you're paying attention, you'll find it.
Perfect. Thank you. So who do you serve these days?
So in the beginning, it was people who needed regulatory compliance guidance, and especially in the healthcare, a little finance in the beginning, but it was a lot of complicated regulations that people honestly just didn't want. If you get into healthcare, say you're a physician, you get into it not because you want to do the admin work, you do it because you want to care for patients. I just happened to complete that good circle, right, with them. It's a nice complete circle where I enjoy doing the regulatory things. Then I realized that compliance was only a part of what was really necessary for a healthy organization. So I expanded my services to corporations in general that felt that they just needed alignment to move forward. And that is really my sweet spot, is when I go in and do trainings, I might be brought in for compliance, but compliance is only as good as the people that are actually upholding the compliance. And so you need to motivate those people. And then, oddly enough, but just coincidental timing, within the last 45 days or so, I launched a new venture that focuses on people, on the public. And that is when I say a mental health platform, I don't mean a mental health platform as in just to treat mental illnesses and things like that. What I'm talking about is that plus resilience recognition in oneself. And so we use biometrics to essentially train people, anybody, executives that are getting ready for burnout, people who are neurodivergent, first responders, veterans. Happy Veterans Day yesterday to everybody that's out there. I'm a veteran. My family's veterans. And it was really important to me to teach people. So it really went from physicians to executives to whole corporations. And now really it's anybody who thinks that they just don't know how to get there and they just need that last little bit of push. That has been very fulfilling because now I get to hopefully teach people that were just like me, people who had no guidance and had no direction, but had enough wherewithal to want to figure it out, because the reward at the end of that is super fun to be a part of.
Which is huge for keeping the motivation going too, right? That reward feeling.
Yes, for me, especially if I can see somebody succeed and I feel like I had even just a small part of it, it's not even about credit. Sometimes at work, people in corporate setting, people get a little bit confused. But again, I think that that's the corporate pressure and corporate expectations. And one of the things that I'm really trying to do for corporations is talk to their leaders about why some of their rules are the way they are. And I think what I mean by that is, I think we've all heard that sometimes rules that seem pointless, and I'm not saying that they are, but if they're perceived as pointless, people start feeling like everything they're doing is kind of just to check some kind of box. So it really, when I talk, because when I do these coaching sessions, I do talk, actually survey and talk, have interviews with the staff. And I've heard over and over again, I don't understand why we're doing this, or why are we doing that? It's just to check a box. And what I'm really hearing is that staff, then, they don't believe that they hold a lot of value, that their voice doesn't carry any weight. Now, all of a sudden, you have a lot of staff that are there maybe just to get a paycheck, because livelihood, eating, that's important. But you have then leadership that looks at your staff like, well, you just don't want to do something, right? There was one where, and I don't remember exactly why this became an issue, but somehow in my survey, somebody said, well, I'm sitting at my desk all day, and it was a remote company. And she said, I work so hard that I barely leave the desk. I'm on meetings all the time, but when I want to grab a bite to eat, the rule is you can't eat during a meeting. And she says, I understand if it was like an external client or something where they didn't know the culture here. But I thought we were kind of a laid back, because I work hard and I'm serious about my job. And to let a sandwich stand in the way of a good, perfect evaluation or something like that, she really started to lose her enthusiasm on being there. And so that's an example, albeit maybe a poor example, of things that I will try to uncover when I go into corporations to try to get alignment between the perception of the staff and the perceptions of your leadership.
And I think too that goes farther, because if she doesn't even have time to grab something to eat, so is she spending 8 or 10 hours straight just hustling?
Absolutely.
Right? Like she doesn't even, like, can she even go pee? Like,
Right, exactly.
or grab a drink, or, because that's expecting a lot of somebody too, just constantly being go, 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 without even a minute just to even breathe.
You're absolutely right. And that is a good part of the message of what I was trying to get them, meaning the leadership, to understand in this particular instance. She never complained. She enjoyed working. Like, she liked doing what she was doing. She had no problems sitting down and working for 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. She was good at what she did. And that's why I always use that really kind of silly sentence there. You're going to let your sandwich get in the way at a good evaluation, because my question to leadership was, why is it a problem? Why is this a problem that she eats during a meeting? And they tried to answer, but again, truth to power, right? I was like, come on, that your answers are silly. And I just noticed that when people really start to be their authentic self, wow, the pieces just really fit together quite nicely, and they don't have to be forced. It really has a wonderful product at the end. Like I said, whether it's a corporation and alignment of staff, or if it's just one alignment with themselves. And that's just because they need to sit back and reflect, and people need to really think, is this what I want, or is this what I think I'm expected to do?
Or even from the leadership side, is that expectation realistic?
Yes. Yes, exactly. I think for corporations, they don't really pay attention to that. And I'm not saying that, of course, we all wish corporations did pay attention to the human side, but I also understand that they're also focused on the numbers. I understand that. I think that even if you just have that one executive champion that says, hey, I hear you, and sometimes has to be that liaison between the executives in their, I'll just say, oh, those are bad decisions. Why are they making this decision? Sometimes you just need to have just one person. It doesn't need to be everybody. Not every CEO is going to be the CEO that comes out and greets their staff every month and says, hi, how's your family? It's not going to happen. So again, that's also the reflection of truth that I'm also trying to get people to just admit. That's not going to happen. CEO's not going to come out. But hey, executives, your people over here really want to feel heard. Maybe you have one person that can reset company expectations, because now you have peer-to-peer discussion. You have an executive talking to the rest of the leadership, and you have that person that might say, you know what? She actually can eat a sandwich during meetings and pay attention and still work just beautifully. Now, all of a sudden, maybe it didn't happen in this case. I wasn't around long enough, but maybe after I left, maybe that role changed. I never did hear back from that person. I would certainly hope that it did, because she was a really great worker.
Yeah. All right. Well, how do you get in front of these people and companies?
I'm learning along the way. Of course, at first it was word of mouth. And wow, that is powerful. Word of mouth is more powerful than I ever imagined it could be. And I think that came from my own kind of resistance to do self-reflection in the beginning of my career. I had this really, I was going to say odd, but I'm learning now that other people feel this, where I thought, oh, if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's not that big a deal. When I was in the military, I was an air traffic controller, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever, but everybody could do it. When I got out, and I would say, people would say, oh, what'd you do in the military? Oh, I was an air traffic controller. Oh my gosh. And I had this way of kind of downplaying it. And yet, after a while, all of a sudden, everybody knew I was an air traffic controller. Like, that was a big deal. And I never really understood that it was just different. And so people thought that it was very interesting. So I needed to change my own perception about myself and what I could do. So then I started talking. I actually tried to break out of my shell, and I started talking. And that's probably where I started telling stories, kinds of things. Stories resonate well, as I'm sure you know better than I do. And if people could talk about my being an something as silly as my being an air traffic controller, if I think I have something really important to say, where's that going to go? And sure enough, the same thing happened. And people started talking. And then people, like, say, when I was a W-2, they would come and talk to me, even people of other departments. And so I started to think, what is it that I'm saying that is actually resonating with people? Now at that point, it was still people I knew. The next step was, all right, how do we get out there? And in the day of the information age, it was easy. And now that we're in the algorithmic age, it's even easier. You just have to have the courage to actually have an opinion out there in the open. Doing something like a LinkedIn post is terrifying to me. I still grapple with it because I'm so afraid of what somebody else is going to say in the comments below me. It just takes a little bit of courage. And then what you find out is that people will get you in front of other people, and they'll get you in front of other people. And then I'll look at my website the next day and I'm like, wow, I got a lot more visitors here. This is crazy. People actually do. They're either just curious or they want services, and maybe they're too afraid to reach out because they don't quite know what to say. So it's a lot of work, but it's also admitting that I don't know what I don't know, especially, I mean, you'll probably giggle at this, especially when it comes to marketing. Somebody, not too recently, but recently enough, when I was starting all this, can't believe I'm going to say this here, said, do you do any paid marketing? Now, I had a friend that was just kind of so I was just starting out. And I had a friend who was just putting together little videos. And I said, oh, no, she works for free. And they were like, no, not that kind of paid. Like, do you actually do paid marketing? I don't understand. So it was silly and I was embarrassed. And now, a year later, it's okay. And I want to be able to tell that story because I want other people who might feel that they were in the same position as me to know that that's okay. And you giggle and you move on and you laugh about it later on, but you don't let it stop you. So that's how I get in front of people.
A side note, I just thought of it because you work with compliance. Do you work with, let's say, the nation as a whole, or is it just certain regions?
No, I am multi-jurisdictional. I am allowed to work anywhere, but it's not cookie cutter because of all the state regulations. If I'm advising somebody in California, especially where they're very regulation heavy and very consumer and patient friendly, it might be very, very different than other states. And so it's not like I have a packet that I can just walk in with. Well, I mean, at this point, I do have packets because I've been doing this long enough to where I keep them updated with every jurisdiction, but it's not the same book of materials that I go in with because the regulations are so very different.
But you don't have that restriction on, oh, I can't work with people here, here, or here.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. Because it's not under the practice of law. This is regulatory compliance. And that's also another reason why I was so drawn to that is I think I didn't want to be confined to just an area. And I wasn't going to sit for the bar in all 50 states. That kind of gets expensive and it would be crazy anyway. So I like the challenge of going into a new state because it makes me have to be also creative. I have to go, all right, the rules say this, but your goal is that. How do we creatively get you to that place by still protecting your reputation, your brand, your reputation, and just keep you regulatorily compliant? It's a challenge, but it's fun. That is really fun.
Do you rely on AI for help?
No. I will do things like, well, first of all, I don't think I'm just learning about paid marketing. I'm not quite with AI yet. And what I mean by that is I certainly know about it. I certainly use it. But do I use it in the way that some of these other people who are really diving down deep and learning like all these crazy prompts and things like that? No. But also the anal retentiveness in me, I have a big thing about reputation and making mistakes, as if you reflect on this whole conversation, right? That's kind of how it started. Too afraid to make a mistake. Well, I'm still very conscientious about it. And so even if it were a book, if I go and look at the statute in one book, I'll go and try to make sure and I look up that statute in another book because I just want to make sure that I don't steer people wrong. Because since I am now at the core of talking about let me help you be successful, whether that's your corporation or that I really cannot afford to be careless and to make a mistake there.
Yeah. So what are some big goals that you have in the next year or two?
Oh, wow. I definitely want to grow Kira Vida Health. I want Consivian to be more of a household name, not necessarily so people will hire me, but more for the framework that I think that I have figured out and put out there. I would love to see this framework used to get corporations to align with the rest of their business. It's not really about credit. It's just about, hey, I had this really cool idea, I think, and let's go out there and see if it works. Because so far it has been working. So I have no reason to not want to spread that. Those are my two big goals. And then just maybe once I want to be reminded somehow that what I'm doing is valuable to somebody. That doesn't mean that somebody needs to come back and say, hey, Michi, thank you so much. That's not what I mean. I just want to see the fruits of the idea. I want to see that somebody actually started a new company because maybe they heard this. I want somebody to wake up in the morning and do some self-reflection and say, I've been trying to force myself into that mold, and maybe that's why it's not working. Let's shed all of that. Let me sit back and do some reflection and figure out, what is it that I want in a vacuum? What is it that I want, and how do I get there? If I can just inspire one person a year to do that, my goals are met.
Just like that, right?
Just like that. So easy, right? So easy. And I'm going to be working on this. I've been working on this for a long time, and I didn't even realize how many iterations I've had until I actually sat down recently, like even preparing for this. Like, what have I done? Wow, okay, even in the last 90 days, I've launched a new company and had new ideas on how I want to reach out to people. It's definitely not easy, and I have a feeling that, yes, I'm going to keep learning about what works, and I'm going to keep taking the challenge on trying to figure out how to get alignment in people and in corporations, and I'll probably iterate till the day I'm no longer here.
At least you have a goal, long term.
Exactly, long-term goal.
All right. What is the best advice that you have ever received?
Somebody said to me, it wasn't really advice, but it was, why not? And that was before law school, so it felt like a mini, Socratic method or root cause analysis.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe and leave some love through a review. And I'll catch you on the next episode.
Why not? Answer something. Why not? That was advice cloaked, because I think I've taken that with me. Essentially, she was saying, are you sure? Why can't you do that? Do some self-reflection. She just wasn't saying it that way. And that was good, because she knew me well enough to know that giving me an open-ended question like that would probably resonate a lot better with me than telling me that I should do this or I shouldn't do that. Like a lot of us, that doesn't work with me. I want to be faced with a situation where I can sit back and think. And so she said, why not? And it forced me to answer that question.
What's the best advice you've ever given?
Oh, that one's easy because I give it all the time. Now, start before you're ready, but finish with intention. That is the best advice I think that I've given. I think maybe that's the advice that resonates with the younger me a lot more than any other advice I've given. Because starting before you're ready, really? But I won't have a plan. I might make mistakes. I don't have a goal. How do I know what success is? You can't start before you're ready. Sure you can. You absolutely can. You sit down and you say, this is what you want to do. And you might not know how to get there. And that's okay, because that's just probably the path that's going to change on you. Anyway, it's going to change on you. So get started. And you'll figure it out along the way. You just have to be purposeful. Then once you learn more, once you understand a little bit, your goal starts to form itself. Now you have intention on how to reach that goal. And you actually have steps, tangible steps that you can take. But be okay if you have to sidestep, and not everything has to be so smooth and linear. It really is just about, what are you happy with? What are you content with? Meeting your goal means that you're probably going to be content, and just be okay with whoever you are and how you have to get there. As long as you're not hurting people or animals, figure it out. It's a puzzle box, and you can figure your way out of it. And then you end up on the Virginia Purnell show. Hey.
It reminded me of Marie Forleo, whose everything is figure outable.
Yes, it really is. But it's hard, though. And it's exhausting. And I think people give up sometimes too soon. And like I said earlier, they don't give up maybe necessarily because they're lazy or they just can't figure it out. A lot of times it just feels like, but why am I bothering? So I think where people take a wrong turn, that means they're not considering the other external factors. Yeah, it's figure outable, but maybe what you're trying to do is force the solution in a way that you think it's supposed to be. Don't. Maybe you sit back and consider another way. You're going to feel where something gives. When something starts to give, you start to make a little step towards, that probably means you're on the right path. So then you get a little bit closer and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. So now all of a sudden, boy, here comes that energy again. And people are just inspired to get up and go and do. All of the power is within us. And fluffy though that may sound, it's so true. We just have to believe it. And then I think at the end of that path is a lot of satisfaction on who, not just what we've done, but on who we are also.
Yes, so true. Do you want to talk a little bit to us about compliance as a growth strategy?
Compliance as a growth strategy, most people say that that's an oxymoron. And that's because, especially if I deal with a marketing department, they'll say something and I'm like, I'm really sorry, but the FDA is going to frown upon that or something like that. You might really want to consider not doing that. So they would absolutely say that it's not a growth strategy. But I can tie it back to exactly everything that we've been talking about. In that, if I say to you, and let's say that the company is not, let's say that they're mildly risk adverse. So they're not willing to really step out on a limb there. Other companies, they're very risk tolerant and they'll just say, oh, I'm going to say anything I want to. My job is just to say, okay, I've told you what the risks are. Okay. So understand that you may run up against this. I'm not the CEO. I'm just going to tell you what the probability is. So as a growth strategy, if I say to a company that's mildly risk adverse, you can't say that. It's going to force, or it should force, that company, that marketing division to be creative, to be challenged, to go, all right, well, this is what I need to say. That's that goal that I've been talking about as people. Now, how do I say that without bumping my head, which is the regulatory risk that in this analogy. And so it really all fits. It's about, here is your floor. Here are your consequences. We can figure this out though. We can figure out how to get to whatever your goal is. If you look at compliance in that way, you should naturally grow because you're also in that creativity. A corporation is not doing what other corporations are doing because they took maybe the easier way out, the more obvious way out. Whereas the company I'm working with, if I'm forcing you to think and to be creative by respecting the regulations, you'll set yourself apart just even naturally. You will just naturally set yourself apart. In that same marketing ad, that marketing director might think of something just absolutely just eye-catching because they had to be creative and not take the easy way out. That right there, especially in the day of social media and word of mouth and all that, now you're going to say, oh my God, did you see that ad? That was so cool. You might not even want it. You might go buy it. Who knows? So it's growth strategy, not only for the corporation, but for the people in the corporation too, because now they just collectively took this, what seemingly was maybe a difficult task, and figured it out together. And that is also very gelling.
It has people work together too.
Yes. Yeah. And now you're going to come back to your speaking truth to power thing too. There's always going to be a senior in the room. And for anybody who has an idea or a voice in that collaboration of marketing experts, I would hope that the most senior person there can listen. What they say when we were like young and in school, they're like brainstorm. And that means that nothing is stupid, right? Anything, it goes. It's like that. Somehow we lose that as we get more formal and more corporate. I think we lose that a little bit. And that's, interestingly enough, where compliance becomes your growth strategy, is it forces actually creativity.
Perfect. We've talked about a few things. Is there something that we haven't yet talked about that you would like to?
No, I think that's it. I'm happy that the cat didn't meow and
Hawk. I was waiting for it.
she's sleeping now. I'm just really glad that you got her to speak to me this morning. She never says it, so thank you.
So where can we go to learn more about you and what you're up to?
I'm on LinkedIn, isn't everybody? Michi McClure, but my 2 websites are, and the one that was at issue today is, both have wait lists. Contact me, and I still do, obviously, all my own marketing. So I will be the one to look at the numbers on the wait list, and I would be the one to call you back.
Perfect. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Virginia. This was wonderful.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Entrepreneur Conundrum with Virginia Purnell, where growing entrepreneurs share how they get visible online. Thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe and leave some love through a review. And I'll catch you on the next episode.